It started with a mysterious death in 2022. And then there were two more. And then there were disappearances. And by early 2026, that number had grown to at least 10, possibly 11 different people who worked in scientific communities around the United States who had either disappeared or died under strange circumstances. In this episode, we focus on 5 of those cases, where professional background connections have been made and disturbing patterns begin to form. William Neal McCasland was a retired United States Air Force general with a long distinguished career, which began after he graduated from the U.S. Air Force Academy in 1979. He earned a doctorate in astronautical engineering from MIT, and he completed a fellowship at Harvard's John F. Kennedy School of Government. His Air Force career spanned research, acquisition, and command roles at the National Reconnaissance Office, the Pentagon, and the Air Force Research Laboratory, where he oversaw a $2.2 billion science and technology budget. After 34 years of service, he retired in 2013 and settled down with his wife Susan in Albuquerque, New Mexico. On the morning of February 27th of 2026, the 68-year-old general left his home on foot. It's not known where he was headed or why, but he left without his phone and prescription glasses, and never returned. The next day, a silver alert was issued to the public, which is typically reserved for missing elderly adults, specifically those with documented impairments like Alzheimer's disease or dementia. But no medical condition was specifically disclosed in the general's case. Search operations included the use of helicopters, drones, search dogs, and hundreds of volunteers, but no sign of the general was ever found. The FBI Albuquerque field office has not found any signs of foul play as of yet, and continues to assist the local sheriff's office in the search for the missing general. Now, attention to General McCasland's case intensified when it was learned that he had previously commanded Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, a place that is historically linked to UFOs, specifically the 1947 Roswell incident. His wife Susan publicly denounced any association between the two, stating publicly that her husband served only as an unpaid consultant there and had, quote, no secret UFO knowledge. And that's when people started digging. And they found General McCasland's name actually appeared in an email discovered in the infamous 2016 WikiLeaks release. It was in an email dated January 25th of 2016 between a man named Tom DeLonge and Hillary Clinton's campaign chairman, John Podesta. DeLonge ran a company called To the Stars, Inc., which was created specifically to investigate unidentified aerial phenomenon. The email was sent by DeLonge to Podesta and contained the following message about General McCasland. Quote, I've been working with McCasland for 4 months. I just got done giving him a 4-hour presentation on the entire project. Trust me, the advice is happening now on how to do all of this. He just has to say that out loud. And he is very aware, as he was in charge of all that stuff. When Roswell crashed, they shipped it to the laboratory at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, and McCasland was in charge of that exact laboratory. So he knows what I'm trying to achieve, and he helped to assemble my advisory team. He's a very important man, unquote. It was discovered that General McCasland also had worked with Michael Duggan, a scientist with a research lab at Kirtland Air Force Base in New Mexico. Duggan had spent his career researching UFOs and was an assistant to J. Allen Hynek, the man who led Project Blue Book, which was the first Air Force investigation into reported encounters with UFOs by the US government. As of today, General McCaslin remains missing, and investigators have not ruled out a voluntary disappearance or accidental cause. So why did General McCaslin walk out of his house that day? And where did he go? We can only speculate. But of the items identified as missing from McCaslin's residence that day was a pair of his hiking boots, his wallet, and a .38 caliber revolver. That last item is the most concerning. We can only ask, was he carrying his weapon to protect himself or to harm himself? And is there anything to his connections to the UFO community? Why did his wife feel compelled to say that he didn't have any secret UFO knowledge before anyone had come to those conclusions or made those connections? Perhaps the answer to that lies in the other disappearances. Monica Reza was an American material scientist and aerospace engineer affiliated with NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory. She gained distinction for co-inventing Mondaloy, a heat-resistant nickel-based superalloy that's critical to U.S. rocket engine programs. She held dual degrees in metallurgical engineering from Columbia University and a master's in materials science from UCLA. In her 3 decades of work at Aerojet Rocketdyne, she rose to the role of a technical fellow, which put her in charge of research and development on advanced high-temperature alloys. Her 2010 patent for Mondaloy replaced Russian-sourced metals in engines used for national security launches. And in 2023, she joined NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory as Director of Materials Processing, continuing her work on aerospace propulsion metallurgy. A majority of Monica's research was funded by Air Force research labs, specifically during the tenure of General William McCaslin, who happened to be the director of the Air Force group that funded her research. A connection that wasn't learned until after the general disappeared. Nearly a year before McCaslin vanished, on the morning of June 22, 2025, Monica went hiking with 2 friends on a trail near Mount Waterman in California's Angeles National Park. At approximately 9 a.m., one of her friends that was hiking ahead of her stopped and turned around. He said he saw Monica about 30 feet behind him. They waved at each other, and he continued hiking forward. When he turned back again a short time later, she was gone. Despite an extensive search effort that involved helicopters, search dogs, and volunteers, no trace of Monica was ever found. At the time of her disappearance, she was 60 years old, and to this day, she remains missing. And although no criminal link can be proven, the fact that her and General McCaslin were involved with the same advanced technology project, and they both disappeared a year apart from each other, can't be ignored. And the coincidences don't end here. They begin piling up. Michael David Hicks was an American planetary scientist who was also affiliated with NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory. He was renowned for his expertise on the physical properties of comets and asteroids, and he contributed to several major NASA missions, studying the impact risks that asteroids may pose to our planet. After he completed his doctorate at the University of Arizona, he joined the NASA Jet Propulsion Lab as a research scientist, and had been there for nearly 25 years. His primary research focused on the compositional properties of comets, asteroids, and other small solar system bodies. He played active roles on several notable NASA missions, including the Near-Earth Asteroid Tracking Project, the Deep Space One and Dawn missions, and the Double Asteroid Redirection Test, otherwise known as the DART project, which studied our ability to deflect dangerous asteroids away from Earth. Over his career, he published over 80 peer-reviewed papers, and his scientific contributions helped refine our understanding of asteroid surface reflectance, aiding planetary defense and mission target selection. He had quite the resume for a person who died mysteriously just 1 year after he left the NASA Jet Propulsion Labs. Michael Hicks was only 59 years old when he mysteriously died on July 30th of 2023, 2 years before Monica Reza and General McCaslin's disappearances. The mystery surrounding his death is that no official cause was ever provided. Not even those who knew him, specifically his colleagues at NASA, have commented on how he died. It could have been natural, but none of his online obituaries say he was ill or battling any chronic disease. His connection to NASA's Jet Propulsion Labs is another link to the previous cases we can't overlook. At least not until we know how he died. The reason for the secrecy around his passing could be that it's part of an ongoing investigation. But it's been close to 3 years. And believe it or not, the list of deaths and disappearances involving scientists associated with NASA, specifically NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratories, doesn't end here. Frank Mywald was an electrical and systems engineer at NASA Jet Propulsion Laboratory, where he worked on the development of flight electronics and robotic spacecraft for planetary and deep space missions. He focused on design, fabrication, and testing of the miniature electronics that have to survive radiation, vibration, and the temperature extremes encountered in spaceflight. His work supported investigative missions on other planets, testing atmospheres, performing surface exploration, and enabling autonomous spacecraft operations far from Earth. He co-authored studies addressing long-term survivability of spaceborne electronics and assemblies, and articles citing his work can be viewed online. His work led to robust spacecraft systems that can function for years without maintenance. Work that is critical for future space missions. These achievements should be read as a resume. Instead, they're from his obituary. He also died mysteriously on the 4th of July in 2024. Just like Monica Reza and Michael Hicks, he was from Southern California, and his cause of death, just like Michael Hicks's death, has not been publicly disclosed. He was 61 years old. So ask yourself, are these just extreme coincidences? Or is there something more here? And before you answer that question, there's still more cases to consider. Amy Eskridge was a scientist and entrepreneur based in Huntsville, Alabama. She was known for her controversial research into gravity modification and advanced propulsion. She had degrees in chemistry and biology from the University of Alabama and expanded her interests into nanotechnology, electrical engineering, and field-based propulsion physics. She co-founded Holocron Engineering and the Institute for Exotic Science, along with her father, Richard Eskridge. Richard was a retired NASA Marshall Space Flight Center engineer specializing in plasma and fusion propulsion. The Institute for Exotic Science explored unconventional physical theories and speculative aerospace technologies, which led to her presentation titled A Historical Perspective on Anti-Gravity Technology in 2018, which reviewed experimental propulsion concepts from early gravity research and technology to contemporary propulsion drives. She argued that there was a way to enable gravity modification, and she advocated for open, independent research as opposed to classified black budget programs. On June 11th of 2022, she was discovered dead of a gunshot wound. Few details have been released about the investigation into her death, but it was ruled a suicide by officials. After her death, a friend of hers named Frank Milburn came forward to dispute that she took her own life. According to Frank, Amy had told him that she feared for her life and was being targeted for her work. Specifically, her work in propulsion technology that threatened conventional rocketry. Just prior to her death, she sent Frank a text that read, quote, "If you see a report that I killed myself or that I overdosed or killed anyone else, just know that I most definitely did not," unquote. Amy's father, Richard, refuted this, saying that he didn't think there was anything suspicious about his daughter's death, despite the online speculation. He is quoted as saying this about his own daughter, quote, "Scientists die, just like other people," unquote. Amy was only 34 years old. Officials say she took her own life, but her messages in the days before her death say otherwise. What's not in dispute is her work and efforts to formalize extraordinary propulsion studies and exploring unconventional energy systems with her dad, who was a former NASA engineer. In the weeks leading up to her death, her work had attracted the attention of UAP and UFO disclosure communities. So is it still a coincidence that we have 4 scientists and a general who at one time or the other had worked in the areas of advanced technology involving aerospace and propulsion systems? And when it comes to these areas of science, we can all agree that these people knew a lot. And if these aren't coincidences, the question becomes, did they know too much? And when does knowing too much become dangerous? And when does that knowledge become a liability? Each of these deaths and disappearances occurred in the past 4 years. So what could have happened in their particular fields in the past 4 years, beginning in 2022? We can only speculate. But maybe, just maybe, it's a pure coincidence that in 2022, the Congressional Intelligence Subcommittee held its very first hearing on UFOs in over 50 years. That hearing was held in the open and took testimony from Pentagon officials. That hearing led to the establishment of the Old Domain Anomaly Resolution Office that is tasked with investigating and analyzing unidentified anomalous phenomenon, or UAPs. The AARO office was created on July 20th, 2022, 1 month after Amy Eskridge reportedly committed suicide. A year later, on July 26th of 2023, David Grush, a former Air Force intelligence officer, testified under oath before Congress that the government possessed materials from non-human entities recovered from crash sites. Ryan Graves, a former U.S. Navy pilot, also testified that day to regular encounters he and other pilots have had with UAPs. 4 days later, Michael David Hicks died mysteriously. Congress frequently holds closed-door briefings. In 2024, closed-door oversight of AARO was conducted prior to the July 4th recess, during which Frank Mywald passed away. Since the creation of AARO, briefings and oversight of that office have been conducted behind closed doors. Some members of Congress have been outspoken on what they have seen and what they have been briefed on, and have pushed for more transparency. In 2025, NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratories expanded its research into quantum technology, testing autonomous drones in Death Valley to simulate conditions on Mars, and using laser-based methods for deep space communications. Around that same time, Monica Reza disappeared on a hiking trip. 2 months after General McCaslin stepped out of his home and disappeared, NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratories announced that they had discovered organic molecules on Mars. Those are 2 milestones achieved during 2 strange disappearances. Now, it could all be just a coincidence, but that doesn't stop it from feeling off. And until we know for certain, we are just speculating. But it won't stop us from asking the questions. Like, why are some of the most brilliant minds on the planet falling victim to mysterious deaths and disappearances? And when does knowing too much become dangerous? Thank you for listening to this episode of They Disappeared. Subscribe to They Disappeared on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen for more stories of the missing. If you enjoyed this episode and want to support our work, please consider leaving a review or visiting our Patreon. All links can be found in the show notes. This episode was written by Pat Draven with research assistance from open source material. This episode was produced by Katie Haze. To see and hear more of her work, please visit her at katiehaze.com. And until next time, stay vigilant and keep the missing in your hearts. Keep their memory alive, because hope is a flame that even years of darkness cannot extinguish.